Live from Citizen TV, this is Citizen Weekend with Victoria Rubadiri.
You're just in time for Citizen Weekend. That is our guest tonight, the Cabinet Secretary for Labor and Social Protection, Honorable Florence Bore. Of course, we'll be talking about where are the jobs, the unemployment scourge in the country, as well as labor migration. What are all those bilateral agreements about? She'll be in studio in just a few to unpack and demystify all of those questions. Keep them coming. The hashtag is Citizen Weekend. Tag me on X at Vicky Rubadiri, at Citizen TV as well on X. You're watching Citizen Weekend, and here are the day's top stories.
We cannot pretend anymore as a country. Those of us who have jobs, those of us who have opportunities, we cannot continue to pretend that we do not have an unemployment problem in Kenya.
Si huyu Rahim ndiye mmepea mamlaka ongea on your behalf. Iko judge mmepigia kura hapa Meru.
Return of hostilities. President Ruto and allies resume onslaught on the judiciary in the aftermath of the housing tax loss.
Watu waelewane. Hii mpango itafanya namna gani? Tutaanza wapi, tutaenda wapi? Na nani atatoa pesa? Itatoka wapi? Sio wewe unataka tu kama serikali na kifua. Unasema mpende msipende.
This is a different era. Raila says affordable housing project will not be implemented through force. Not so fast. Advocate files petition against the judiciary's plan to launch services at Huduma centers in the country.
I'm really enraged. I am quite disturbed by the killing of women that has continued. We lost Agnes, and she was a world record holder. Now we've lost other girls.
Thousands of Kenyans hold peaceful marches across the country to protest rising cases of femicide. Welcome to the broadcast. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Stanley Kinyanjui. Now, President William Ruto led his Kenya Kwanza team in a fight back against the outlawing of the housing tax, accusing the judiciary of sabotaging government projects, even as his allies defended him and said they would push the housing tax through Parliament in as short a time as possible. As Stephen Leto reports, key Kenya Kwanza parliamentary leaders have indicated that the government will flex its muscles in the National Assembly to get the tax effected, with the majority leader telling off the judiciary and saying National Assembly members were elected by the people, unlike the judiciary.
President William Ruto was in his third day of what is styled as a development tour of Meru County, where the controversial housing tax topic was a major issue. Speaking as he officiated various development projects in Imenti South constituency, President Ruto maintained that his pet project, affordable housing, will go on despite the legal hurdles.
The government of Kenya has clear plans on how to create job opportunities. One of them is housing, and we are going to make sure that housing creates at least 500,000 jobs in Kenya, to make sure that young people graduating from Mitungu and all other colleges have an opportunity to go work.
President Ruto's remarks comes just a day after the Court of Appeal denied the government's push to continue collecting the housing tax. President Ruto telling off opponents of his government's agenda and again criticizing the judiciary for decisions made in courts of law.
For the avoidance of doubt, that we cannot pretend anymore as a country. Those of us who have jobs, those of us who have opportunities, we cannot continue to pretend that we do not have an unemployment problem in Kenya. We have millions of young people in Kenya out of school, out of college, out of universities, they are doing nothing because they have no opportunity to work, because there have never been any programs to make sure that they have an opportunity to work.
The president's allies taking cue from him in criticizing the judiciary, which they attacked of judicial overreach, which they said was undermining and sabotaging the government's efforts to implement projects.
Kwa hivyo rais, wewe endelea na kazi yako, wale kwa judiciary wakikusumbua tafadhali tuachie, kama wabunge tunyoroshane na wao. Tuwanyoroshe ama tusiwanyoroshe.
And with the battle lines clearly drawn, the president's men were making it clear that they will not take the perceived affront by the judiciary lying down.
Si huyu Rahim ndiye mmepea mamlaka ongea on your behalf. Iko judge mmepigia kura hapa Meru. Iko justice mmepigia kura hawaongelee. Rahim ndiye mmepea kazi. Rahim aongelesha ama asiongelee. Na sasa tunataka kusema hapa Meru town, ile kitu imetusumbua ni barabara kutoka Getimene kwenda Nduokale mpaka pale Showground. So rais ukituwekea pesa hapa, sisi tutashukuru zaidi. Ambone barabara kwereto ni rais kwejaje. Wale wamefurahi na rais. Asanteni sana, Mungu awabariki.
The National Assembly's Joint Committee of Finance and Housing that are conducting public participation for the Affordable Housing Bill say they want to ensure the bill is ready in 2 weeks' time.
By Wednesday this week, next week, tutakuwa tumemaliza report writing. We go and table in Parliament, and Parliament will be recalled. Then we come and pass the law. So I think this is something that will not take more than 2 weeks.
What the court pronounced itself is we are studying the judgment and finding those loopholes that may have existed in law and creating the legislative framework like we're doing now. So housing life is not going anywhere.
Another team led by Transport CS Kipchumba Murkomen and Kiharu MP Ndindi Nyoro, while attending the burial of Mary Moroto, mother to legislator Samuel Moroto in West Pokot County, called on the judiciary to sober up and embrace dialogue with other arms of government.
And that's why I implore the judiciary to actually come to the conversation table on issues of national importance. Because those of us who are in the executive get frustrated when we do not agree on the things that unite our country together.
We must always put public interest at the forefront as we make all the decisions that we make as leaders. Na sisi tuko legislature, wale wako judiciary, tafadhali wacha Mkenya akuwe kwanza.
Wakati wanarudi tarehe 12 kule bungeni, within 1 week watamaliza hiyo sheria affordable housing. We comply with what the court wants. Watume katika Senate na sisi katika chini ya mwezi moja tutamalizana na hiyo sheria, vijana warudi kazi na tujenge nchi yetu.
Stephen Leto, Citizen TV.
Now, Azimio leader Raila Odinga has slammed President William Ruto over use of government might to push his affordable housing project through. Odinga says the president's sentiments undermine the spirit of the Constitution, calling on him to initiate dialogue to resolve the stalemate. Odinga spoke in Mombasa, where he led an ODM recruitment drive. Francis Mtalaki reports.
The Azimio leader was in Mombasa leading the ODM party recruitment drive, where he took on President William Ruto over his push for affordable housing. The president's remarks, according to Odinga, undermine the spirit of the Constitution.
Wewe unataka tu kama serikali na kifua unasema mpende msipende. Ile wakati wa mpende msipende ilikwenda. Hiyo tulitoa.
Odinga says the opposition is not opposed to the plan, terming the president's sentiments on affordable housing project reckless, saying the government is yet to come clear on how the project will be implemented, who is to benefit, and how. The ODM party leader asking President William Ruto to initiate dialogue on the affordable housing debate.
Affordable housing inatakikana katika taifa letu, lakini mpaka ifanywe na mpango, mpaka watu waelewane hii mpango itafanya namna gani, tutaanza wapi, tutaenda wapi, na nani atatoa pesa, itatoka wapi. Kama wewe unataka kuleta mfumo mpya katika taifa letu, mpaka watu waketi chini wajadiliane, wakubaliane, itaendeshwa namna gani? Watu gani ambayo watafaidika? Akina nani watafaidika? Na pesa itatoka wapi?
Odinga also condemned the Changamwe demolition that have left tens of families in the cold.
Tumewaambia watutengezee ajira. Wanasema sisi tutawajengea nyumba. Unajenga nyumba wakati juzi Taita Taveta umevunjia familia 1,000. Familia 1,000 zimelala nje bila chakula, bila mattress, bila kitanda. Alafu unasema mimi ni baba wa mayatima, mimi ni baba wa wanyonge.
Huwezi kubomoa manyumba ya watu bila kuonyesha watu wao wataenda wapi. Hapo kuna jamii, kuna wazee, kuna wale wakina mama wakongwe, kuna watoto wachanga ambao hawana mahali ya kwenda. Hiyo ni unyama mtupu.
In Bungoma, DAPK party leader Eugene Wamalwa asked President William Ruto to refund all the money collected by the government under the housing levy, a day after the court suspended its implementation.
Pili, tunamwambia ile pesa ulichukua kwa kinyume na sheria, tunataka hizo pesa zirudishiwe Wakenya mara moja.
Unasema Sarif Nasir.
The ODM leader has concluded his weekday-long tour of the coast region in Mombasa today. Francis Mtalaki, Citizen TV.
KOTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli has criticized the Office of the Attorney General, attributing the government's failure to implement promises to inadequate advice given to President William Ruto. Speaking in Matayos Busia County, Atwoli cited instances where the government has faced setbacks in the courts, notably the affordable housing project.
Ofisi ya Attorney General, mimi nataka kusema hapa sasa, na grupu yake yote na all legal government advisors, wanataka wa advise government. Tusiona hii mfurutano ya kotini na president, mara hii imetolewa na koti, mara hii koti imepinga hii, mara mambo haya yamefanyika. Kabla hayo maneno ijafanyika, government must be properly advised by the Office of Attorney General.
Now, the disagreement within the legal fraternity over judiciary services at Huduma centers has escalated, with an advocate moving to court to stop the planned launch of the services. Chief Justice Martha Koome and the executive have been formally sued under a certificate of urgency following the decision of the judiciary in conjunction with Huduma Kenya to set up judiciary desks in Huduma centers. Advocate Caroline Kamende Daudi argues that the move threatens the independence of the judiciary. Seth Olale with the latest.
In an affidavit sworn by Advocate Caroline Kamende Daudi and filed by her lawyer Levi Muniri and a certificate of urgency at the High Court, the Chief Justice of the Republic, the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary, the CS Ministry of Public Service, Delivery and Performance Management, the Chief Executive Officer Huduma Kenya, and the Attorney General have been sued for collaborating to have a number of judicial services offered at judiciary desks in Huduma centers. The petitioner, who has listed LSK as an interested party, argues that the judiciary has made an administrative decision to collaborate with the executive in the performance of its exclusive function of administration of justice in a manner that undermines the independence of the judiciary and the hallowed doctrine of separation of powers. And that the Law Society of Kenya was not consulted before the judiciary made a decision to transfer some of the judicial services to judiciary desks to be domiciled at Huduma centers under the Ministry of Public Service, Delivery and Performance Management. The petitioner further argues that the decision contravenes or threatens Article 10 of the Constitution of Kenya, 2010, as well as Section 31 of the Advocates Act, Cap 16, that obliges all state organs, state and public officers to conduct public participation when making and implementing public policy decisions. In her bid to have the process, which is scheduled to commence on Monday, the 29th of January 2024, as per the notices and memos, stopped by the High Court, the petitioner argues that if the program is launched, it will irreparably injure the administration of justice, as any court document filed will stand void and may have to be filed afresh at a later date to total detriment of the litigant. The petitioner further arguing that persons masquerading as advocates are eagerly awaiting the rollout of the program to take advantage of the unclarity in its functionality to unlawfully circumvent advocates and illegally offer the services of advocates to unsuspecting members of the public. In certifying the petition urgent, High Court Judge Lawrence Mugambi directed the matter be mentioned on 18th of March 2024 for further directions, with responses to the application and the petition being filed within 14 days from the date of service. Seth Olale, Citizen TV.
Thousands of women joined by men staged peaceful demonstrations in several counties to condemn the rising cases of femicide in the country. Now, the demos, spearheaded by women organizations, coming weeks after the murder of 20-year-old university student Rita Waini and 26-year-old socialite Starlet Wahu. The demonstrators want authorities to expedite justice for the victims, even as they ensure the safety of every Kenyan. Emily Chebet reports.
Traversing the streets of Nairobi in large numbers, carrying placards with the names of women who have been murdered, thousands of these demonstrators were here in solidarity with the victims of femicide. Men and women calling for a stop to a worrying trend of gender-based violence.
I'm here because I'm born by a woman. I don't have a sister, but I have neighbors, I have friends who are girls, and I believe that this should end in Kenya.
Sisi ni binadamu na tumetoka na sasa tumechukua hatua na tukiamua tunaweza tembea mpaka asubuhi. Huyu msichana ni kama mjukuu wangu na nimeumwa nikaumwa zaidi.
Today I just came out in support of the women, especially being a father to a daughter and being a brother to my sisters and having been raised by a wonderful mother. I believe that it's important that we stop killing women and end femicide because it's actually quite serious right now.
The demonstrators, led by different human rights groups, asked the government to declare femicide a national emergency and separate it from any other murder case.
I'm really enraged. I am quite disturbed by the killing of women that has continued. We lost Agnes, and she was a world record holder. Now we've lost other girls who are schoolgirls. How far is this going to go before it ends?
Kuua kina dada zetu haitakuwa suluhisho. Hata kama kuna mtu amekula fare yako, haitakuwa suluhisho ya kumuua.
Tunataka policy ya gender based violence ipitishwe hapa Busia ili tuwe salama, ili tuwe watu ambao tunaweza kutembea bila kuangalia nyuma, kwa sababu kama mama saa zingine mtu anakuambia fulani ujichunge, hao watu wanakuandama. Mnataka nijichunge namna gani?
The message from different counties across the country was similar. A call for individual and collective responsibility to end killings was made.
We are standing against this act because it's a violation of human rights. We are saying, please stop gaslighting victims. People die and then we start creating up things. They are after money, they are after this. No life deserves to, no one is justified to kill anyone for any reasons.
It's okay to date, but before you date, at least angalia huyu mtu kwanza background yake, anatoka wapi, ni nani, who are his friends. Vitu kama hizo zitatusaidia pia kufight vitu kama hizi.
The peaceful march comes as families of Starlet Wahu and Rita Waini awaits for justice. Lack of data and policy on femicide in the country has been termed as one of the obstacles in tackling the rising cases of women who have been killed. Hundreds of men and women who turned out today in solidarity of those who have been killed have vowed to continue until relevant authorities take action. Emily Chebet, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
A former police officer who was serving at Elwak police station in Mandera County before abruptly vanishing has been traced to Lorugum area of Turkana County, where he now works as a construction worker. The National Police Service Counseling Unit officer has diligently sought him since his departure in 2014. In an interview with Citizen TV, the former officer revealed that an IED attack while in the line of duty compelled him to quit after narrowly escaping. His colleagues tragically lost their lives. Ben Kirui tells us more.
At Lorugum Loima area of Turkana County, construction workers are on site engaged in their task of constructing this building. Among them is Clement Erumo, a former police officer who was stationed at the Elwak police station in Mandera County in the year 2024.
Nikaenda Kiganjo, nikatrain miezi 15, nikapostiwa Elwak nikiwa police constable. Nilifanya katika Elwak police station nikiwa crime officer. Peleka watu kotini.
Clement, visibly burdened by memories, shares the reasons behind his sudden departure.
Kuna kiza ambayo sitasahau. Tulikuwa tunescort mabasi. On the way tukielekea Wargadud, kuna kona inaitwa kona S. Sasa gari pale lazima islow. Tuliambushwa. Fortunately nilikuwa nimekaa on the left. Na Al-Shabaab walikuwa hii side ya right wakati waliambushi gari.
Surviving a near-death experience was just the beginning. Subsequent misfortunes weighed heavily on his mind, impacting his work. The final blow came with the funeral service of a fallen colleague, prompting him to quietly hang up his boots and return to his village.
Nilikuwa hata ni escort basi ya siku, lakini nilikuwa nimeenda sokoni kununua chakula kidogo cha mchana. Kukuja nikapata wenzangu, hata niligombezwa, wao umeenda wapi? Ulikuwa escort gari? Nikasema wande, mimi nilikuwa nimeenda kununua nini hapo. Lakini kuna mwenzangu mwenye alireplace akaenda. Pale tu hata masaa mawili haijaisha, gari yetu imeatakiwa na kuchoma. Sasa sijui sasa vile nilijipata hapa nyumbani. Nilijipata tu nimeacha kazi hivyo kwa sababu ya stress.
Ile niliona kaona ameogopa kifo. Sababu vile alikuja huku, alikuja kama akili yake haifanyi kazi. Anataka kukaa peke yake bila mtu.
Dr. Moses Kimenchu, a counseling officer at police headquarters, has tirelessly tracked the officer over the years.
Very good.
After undergoing a brief training, Kimenchu unveiled that Clement has been battling depression stemming from his traumatic experiences in the line of duty.
Ni mtu anahitaji daktari, na akitibiwa na akipona, nikiangalia hivi ni mtu anaweza rudi kwa kazi na kuwa askari mzuri sana.
As the counseling department arranges mental treatment for Clement before his potential reintroduction to the police force, a rallying call resonates across departments urging human resource units to implement strategies for employee counseling, emphasizing the need to fortify mental health among the workforce. Ben Kirui, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
A family in Kisii is distraught after the daughter, who recently sat her Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education and qualified for university, was killed in an accident along the Kisii-Keroka highway on Friday evening. Nicole Nyamoita shared her dream of becoming the first engineer in her family, despite being raised under difficult circumstances. As Crispin Ocheno now reports, road users in the region have been urged to adhere to traffic regulations after more than 5 people succumbed in various accidents, sparking outrage.
These were the scenes at Bobarasho village within Kisii Township.
A family devastated after receiving reports of their daughter's death in a road accident along Kisii-Keroka Highway. Nicole Nyamoita had just received her KCSE 2023 results and made her family proud by scoring a B+ grade, and was optimistic to join a prestigious university to pursue an engineering course that was to start in September. Little did they know that Nicole's dream was about to be extinguished a few days later.
Sasa sikuwa na nguvu. Sasa nikapigiwa simu nikaambiwa ajali imepatikana huko daraja moja. Sikutania mtoto wangu atakuwa huko. Nilichua mtoto wangu amefika hapa Baracho. Nikajaribu kutengeneza chakula nikashindika kukula. Ndio nipigiwa simu saa 4. Nikaambiwa mtoto wangu ndiye alikuwa mmoja wao. Kwa hiyo ajali ilitendeka huko daraja moja.
The evidently broken family recounting their last moment with the 17-year-old student. From the tragic end, they painfully described the Nicole's vision and her childhood wishes to improve the lot of her poor family.
Hata naona maisha yangu itakuwa vizuri juu nimeisha kabisa. Mtoto nilikuwa na imani sasa. Mtoto nilikuwa naona maisha yangu sasa itabadilika. Niona nyota yangu inaendelea kukua sasa.
Ni huzuni kubwa sana kumpoteza nyota kama huyo.
The family as it is adjusts to life without their kin, making an appeal to the government.
Because it was an accident, sisi tungetaka kujua ule mtu ambaye alikosi accident na due process ikuwe followed. Kama kuna any compensation to be done ikuwe ifanyike. Na at least ikuwe funzo kwa watu wengine, so that kama unasikia gari ni mbaya tafadhali usiingie kwa barabara na gari mbaya.
This comes as cases of road accidents in Kisii have caused dozens of injuries with victims at Kisii Teaching and Referral Hospital. In the last 1 week, over 5 people have been reported dead along Kisii-Kilgoris Road, Kisii-Oyugis Road and at Nyatieko Center in Kitutu Chache South. This comes even as traffic police vow to intensify crackdown on unroadworthy vehicles next week.
Tunaomba tu through the Kenya National Highway Authority waeke bumps na waeke some measures kwa watu wa boda na watu wa magari, at least si students to be safe.
Sisi kama jamii na serikali ni lazima tuhakikishe kwamba tumeleta sanity katika daraja moja, maana tumeweza kupoteza watu wengi pale.
Well, it is along this busy Kisii-Keroka highway where Nicole's life was abruptly cut short on Friday. This is also one of the notorious black spots in the vast Gusii region, as stakeholders continue to appeal to the authority to delve into the matter by erecting major bumps along this stretch in a bid to curb cases of carnage which continue to be on upward trajectory in the vast Gusii region. Crispin Otieno for Citizen TV, Kisii County.
The leadership of the Eastern Africa Standby Forces, or EASF, that brings together 10 countries in the region, has reaffirmed its commitment to support the preservation of unity, territorial integrity, independence, and sovereignty of all member states in dealing with the situation between Ethiopia and Somalia. Now, during the close of the 32nd EASF Ordinary Policy Organs meeting that also saw the rotational chairmanship head to Rwanda from Kenya, the regional peace and security outfit called on Somalia and Ethiopia to refrain from actions and pronouncements that could negatively impact on regional unity. Hassan Mugambi with the details.
The march to the beat of the men and women in uniform bearing the Eastern Africa Standby Forces flag marked an important occasion for the regional peace and security outfit, a change of guard in the rotational chairmanship of ESF. The ceremony that was attended by 10 defense cabinet secretaries from member states saw Rwanda's Minister for Defense Juvenal Marizamunda assume the chairmanship after the curtains closed on the one-year tenure of Kenya's Defense Cabinet Secretary Aden Duale. Duale expressing confidence in his successor.
I wish to say that it has been an honor for Kenya to hold brief on behalf of the ESF member states. Upon reflection, I am filled with a profound sense of nostalgia and gratification, acknowledging our collective achievements while remaining cognizant of the challenges at hand and our region is facing. Working closely with each member state, all partners and friends of ESF to promote a safer and a more secure Eastern Africa. Our collective efforts will undoubtedly contribute to the broader goal of fostering peace and stability on the African continent.
On the diplomatic situation between Somalia and Ethiopia, ESF resolved to adopt the resolution by the African Union on the 17th of January this year that called on the Federal Republic of Somalia and the Federal Republic of Ethiopia to refrain from actions and utterances that will negatively impact on the strong bond of good neighborhood between them. ESF underscored the importance of respecting unity, territorial integrity, and sovereignty of all member states.
From our own internal conflicts in our various countries, to the crisis in Sudan, to the emerging current situation between Somalia and Ethiopia, to the closure of the border between Burundi and Rwanda, we ask all our countries and all our friends that a solution must be found, and a solution that will provide peace, security, and stability in our region.
The three-day meeting that was officially opened by Kenya's Chief of Defense Forces General Francis Ogola Thursday also emphasized on the importance of establishing a well-coordinated and proactive response to regional threats, emergencies, and crises. Hassan Mugambi, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
All right, we're heading into a short break, but my guest of the hour is already here. Cabinet Secretary for Labor and Social Protection, Honorable Florence Bore, is with me. We'll be speaking about labor matters. Also, keep your questions coming. The hashtag Citizen Weekend at Vicky Rubadiri and Citizen TV Kenya on X. Stay with us. We'll be back. All right, welcome back. Now, against the backdrop of a sluggish economy, high cost of living, worsening tax regime, and a job market that is unable to absorb eager workers, it is becoming increasingly difficult to make ends meet. Well, tonight we have Cabinet Secretary for Labor and Social Protection, Honorable Florence Bore, to give answers on what the government is doing to remedy the ailing labor sector. Waziri, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Vicky.
No, absolutely. I think let's begin by painting a picture for Kenyans in terms of what the unemployment situation looks like right now in the country.
Thank you, Vicky. I just want to say the unemployment in this country is really dire. We have very many youths who have graduated. They are at home. They don't have jobs. And it is Kenya Kwanza government's plan to ensure that we get these jobs for these Kenyans. And we are looking at a figure of about 5 million youths who have already finished various courses, be it in diploma, degrees, and in every home you'll always have about 1 to 5 graduates. And it is the focus of this government to ensure that we create jobs for Kenyans, both locally and internationally.
You mentioned 5 million. I'm assuming most of that number is young people.
Yes.
So let's talk about that demographic and how the government is looking at engaging them and absorbing them in some sort of an activity.
Government is trying. The other day, teachers were employed, about 56,000. So those opportunities that we get within Kenya cannot match the big number that we have outside there. So we are looking at various sectors to be able to get jobs. And you've heard the president talk about this. We have the housing project, where we are going to absorb about 130,000 of these Kenyans. Maybe those who are doing plumbing, wiring, masonry, and we have those graduates that come from the diploma colleges and the universities. And we have, as government, a deliberate move to ensure that we get these jobs for the youth. Now, apart from the housing projects, we also have the digital jobs. And ICT hubs are going to be set up in every ward in this country, just to ensure that we have most of these youths that have digital skills be able to get online jobs, maybe sourced from foreign countries and even within Kenya. We also have opportunities that you can find even in the environment, in the green jobs, where we can have youths, focusing on that area and get some jobs within the environmental space. We also have fisheries. We also have marine. They can be able to get those jobs within that area. And then, of course, we have the labor migration, where we are focusing on various countries. We are doing bilateral labor agreements with those foreign countries just to be able to get jobs for them. Our government has also created opportunities in terms of giving internships to the youth. And we have the Public Service Commission that has already provided about 8,000 opportunities for the youth to be able to get some skills and be able to know what goes on in government. So various ministries have got interns that are able to do that. We are also encouraging the private sector to be able to take some of these youths into internship. So we have a plan. We are deliberate. We must get these jobs for the youth of this country. And just for you to know and for Kenyans to know, why we are focusing on labor migration is because even the few Kenyans that we have outside there, about 4 million of them, the kind of remittances that we get from them, it's very high. And it has even overtaken a foreign exchange that we get from coffee, from tea, from tourism. So, and other countries are also taking those opportunities. Talk, for instance, of Saudi Arabia. They have 1 million Filipinos working in Saudi Arabia. We only have about 150,000. And the opportunities are more. They are being created. Cities are being set up in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So opportunities outside there are many. And I'm not just saying it is only Saudi Arabia where we can get opportunities. Currently, we have bilateral labor agreements with Qatar, with Saudi Arabia, United Kingdom. We also have new ones that are ongoing with 19 countries.
And we'll get to that, Waziri, because I want to go back to something you said in terms of absorbing young people, especially in the public sector. Of course, we saw last week PSC had released a report saying nearly 20,000 ghost workers were found in government. And one would think, those would have been gainful employment opportunities had they been filled by actual people. How do you weed out that issue of corruption, especially in a place like the public sector, beyond talking about private sector and opening up jobs there?
The opportunities that are there have always been publicized. You'll find them in the websites, you'll find them in the newspapers, especially the Star. Those opportunities have been advertised publicly for Kenyan youths to access them. What we are only saying is that those opportunities are not enough for our Kenyan youth. They'll take some small percentage, but the majority, we would want to create jobs for them. Let them focus outside there. And my advice is for Kenyan youth to kindly log into the website of the National Employment Authority, where we post all the job opportunities that we get from outside the country. We have what we call the job orders. So usually we put it in that platform. The youth can access those jobs and they can be matched with the opportunities that are there outside Kenya.
But that hardly deals with the corruption issue and ghost workers in government, though.
Yes.
How so?
Because I've said they're publicly given out. And we don't encourage any corruption. We don't encourage any youth to remove any money before they are given a job. Yes? And you've seen even the interior and the defense, when they were able to advertise those jobs, when they were recruiting them, you could see there were people who were watching out for anybody who would want to do corruption or to be able to gain something over a job.
So this is something that you feel should be done at the recruitment level, I think. So we're not spending too much time there. Let's shift focus to, so beyond the pain of those who are unemployed, there's also the employed. Pay slips are shrinking, Waziri. Mm-hmm. And this is under the weight of a very heavy tax regime. There's still more deductions that are yet to hit the pay slip. And there's concerns that we're going to move into that territory of less than a third of gross pay. That's what Kenyans will be taking home at a point. I saw a newspaper article saying there's no more room left to deduct at a point. Mm-hmm. So, you know, when you're looking at the challenges facing the Kenyan worker now, who is earning a living, it appears with all of these changes and all of these shifts, mm-hmm. they're not necessarily being heard in mm-hmm. terms of the challenges they're facing.
Thank you, Vicky. I would want to say we have talks that are ongoing. We usually have the tripartite talks between government, the employers, and the workers, mm-hmm. just to agree. And the economic situation that we have in Kenya doesn't just happen to Kenya. It's worldwide. Just the other day, I had someone who was coming from Germany and was telling me how life is very expensive in Germany. But when he came home to Kenya, he was like, Kenya is even much better. It is not as bad as what they see in other countries. So this economic situation that we have in the country, I'm sure happens all over. And we are saying, even as for us to be able to do any development in this country, we need to pay taxes. Yes, let's appreciate that. But going forward, I see a hope. I see a better situation because of the changes that are ongoing in government.
Some of those changes, some would argue, is seeing people take less and less of their pay home. The Employment Act is very clear and categorical. It prohibits employers from deducting more than 2/3 of basic pay of an employee.
True.
But yet we're seeing people going home with less. Mm-hmm. You know, who is advocating for the worker mm-hmm. at a time like this, beyond telling them mm-hmm. this is just what you have to mm-hmm. do? Mm-hmm.
So we are, as I said, we will still go forward and have talks and see how we can improve the situation within the workspace, just to ensure that our workers are able to take something home. And mine is to say negotiations should continue. Dialogue between government, employers, and workers should continue, just for us to have a favorable environment for all of us to work in.
And what form should those negotiations take, in your opinion, that would see the situation improve?
As a ministry, we'll provide the conducive environment
and what
for these talks to happen.
What does that conducive environment look like, ideally, for the worker?
It's good. It's, we look forward. We have structures where we have the discussions on that. We have the National Labour Board that also brings the parties onto the table to be able to discuss.
Well, I mean, that some would debate that a lot of those deliberations have not worked in favor of the Kenyan worker, but it's yet to be seen if those deliberations mm-hmm. actually yield fruit. But let's move to labor migration issues. And you talked about some of the bilateral agreements that have already been signed. I believe 4 so far that you had mentioned.
Yes.
And at least 19 now that are yet to be finalized. But what do these bilateral agreements seek to achieve for Kenyan workers here?
What happens with the bilateral labor agreements? They are actually worker-friendly. Ours is to ensure that the workers are given their rights, the workers are paid well, the workers, the contractual obligations that are there, we ensure that the worker is protected. So these bilateral agreements are really there for the sake of a migrant worker, to ensure that they are protected, they are given their rights, they are paid well, they are able to work within the required timelines. Some of them are usually overworked, but we ensure that they work within the right timelines. And then they also should be paid well. Like you see, the nurses that we are recruiting, we have had to negotiate for their salaries before they are taken to Saudi Arabia.
Of course, we know government had put in some measures to deal with the situation and the crisis in the Gulf nations.
Yes.
And I'll just kind of take you through a checklist, if you will, of what government said it would do. So there was the wage protection program. Has that been put in place for workers in the Gulf states?
Yes.
What does that look like for them?
You want to know the figures? For instance, for the nurse, the nurse will earn about 150,000 per month, especially that new nurse, maybe with 1 year experience. If you have more years of experience, then you get a better pay above that 150,000.
Okay. A distress alert line for them to reach out to, was that put in place?
Yes. As a ministry, we already have a free toll line where they can be able to reach us out when they have distress, when they have issues, when they're in those foreign countries. And the toll-free line is 0800 22 223.
Okay. And that's also accompanied by a...
And then apart from that, we also have labor attaches.
Okay.
We have our embassies where they can be able to reach out to them.
There was concern about, especially for workers who would go to the Gulf states and their visa being linked to a specific employer.
Yes.
If they were to leave that situation, they would be out of status, if you will.
True.
And it was found that many Kenyan workers were in that category. One of the measures that the government wanted to put in place is to allow employees to change employers. Has that been worked out yet?
Yes, we have addressed that issue. And we've told them if a Kenyan migrant worker has an issue, then authorities need to be told. Our embassy there, our labor attaché, and also, you know, some of those changes we cannot make them because those are some of the laws that they have in Saudi Arabia. But we are there to protect them. We are there to strengthen them, to strengthen the issues around there. And I'll tell you, apart from having our foreign office, apart from having the BLAs, we also ensure that their welfare is taken care of. They're able to be brought back to Kenya if they're in problems. And that has been sorted out. And I believe there will be less issues between the migrant worker and the employer. And apart from that, Vicky, we also have a system that we want to track this worker. When they leave Kenya, up to where they go, we get to know who the employer is and track even the period when they are there to know whether they are doing well or not. So we'll have an integrated system where we are able to track this worker and know their well-being while they're in that country.
We ran out of time, Waziri, but there's one pressing question here. And I see Gadambe, who is asking on X, why would you focus so much on getting nurses jobs abroad while hospitals here are still heavily understaffed? Again, it's speaking to that issue of a brain drain. So as much as we are opening up opportunities for health workers outside, the health sector is suffering quite a bit locally. So what can be done to deal with that? We are doing a national skills mapping just to know the kind of skills that we have in this country, how many nurses, for instance, we have. And we have the Kenya National Council that deal with the nurses. And before we take any nurses outside there, they give us the numbers, how they look like. So they have employed, they have the pool. And if you remember, we had graduates from the Kenya Medical Training College. This year alone, they graduated about 22,000. How many more are out there that have not been employed? So there's no drain at all. We have enough pool for our local absorption and also for export. Okay, so we'll see how that export of jobs will go for the Kenyan labor market. But thank you once again for your time, Waziri. Wish we had more of it to delve into more issues. But let's take a short break here on Citizen Weekend. Much more ahead. Welcome back. Now, did you know that Kenya still ranks high among countries that record a steep increase in diagnosis and death from cervical cancer despite medical improvements that experts say make the disease preventable? Well, experts also say the cervical cancer burden in Kenya, like in many low and middle income countries, is occasioned by a lack of screening and the sluggish uptake of the human papillomavirus vaccine, which has proven to be highly effective in protecting women and girls. Now, as we close out the month of January, a month dedicated to creating awareness about cervical cancer, Sarfin Achieng Ooma brings you the story of cervical cancer survivors, their brave battle against the chronic disease, and the lessons learned so far.
Susan Wanjera Ihugo is a resident of Langalanga area in Nakuru County. Susan is just back from her regular medical checkup. It is almost 5 months since she was declared cervical cancer-free, but she takes us back to how this chapter of her life began in 2022.
Nilipatikana na shida ya discharge na bleeding. Baada ya muda niliamua niende hospitalini. Baada ya kuchukua vipimo, majibu ilitokea niko stage 4A. Nilipatwa na mshtuko, nikashindwa nianze wapi, nimalizie wapi.
That is how Susan joined the statistics of women who are battling cervical cancer, which according to the International Agency for Research on Cancer, hit over 604,000 new cases in 2020, and over 341,000 deaths were recorded globally. Dr. Siwili Smithe is an expert oncologist.
Cervical cancer ranks second nationwide after breast cancer, and that's in terms of incidence. In terms of mortality, cervical cancer ranks first. Out of the total number of patients we treat per month, almost half of the cases are usually cervical cancer cases, so that explains the burden of cervical cancer that we have in our county.
Cervical cancer is caused by the human papillomavirus, commonly transmitted through sexual encounter. Common symptoms include heavy bleeding, intense lower back pains, and itching of the cervix. Cervical tumors can take up to a decade or more to move from precancers to cancers. This is why Gladys Simani, who got a positive stage 2 cervical cancer diagnosis in 2023, insists on regular testing for early detection and treatment.
Sasa unakuja kuambiwa eti inaletwa labda na mwanaume ama venye mmeshia na mwanaume. Unashindwa na hao wanyanya wenye waliachana na mabwana zao kitambo. Wanapata wapi hii ugonjwa? But tumekuja kufundishwa kuwa hii kitu inaweza kuwa ulifanya kitambo ama ulishia na mtu mwili kwa mwili kitambo. Sasa hiyo inakuja kujulikana after 15 years ama 20 years. Si eti venye umeshia na mwanaume saizi itakuja kujulikana. Kwa hivyo watu waende screening, wajijue mapema. Wakishajijua mapema, wa prevent hii kitu mapema.
A great milestone in the prevention of cervical cancer has been the global rollout of the human papillomavirus vaccine, which was rolled out in Kenya in 2019, targeting girls aged 10 to 14 years. The target uptake was 80%, but while acceptance of the vaccine during the pilot phase was 85%, the uptake of the vaccine since then has been suboptimal, with only 29% of girls getting the first dose and only 44% getting the second dose, which is way below the WHO target of 2030 of increasing HPV vaccination to 90%.
If you look at the Global Gun 2020 datasheet, you'll see that in the parts of sub-Saharan Africa and South America experience the highest number of incidents of cervical cancer cases. And also when it comes to mortality, the same trend is observed. And this is very different from what happens in Europe and America. And this could be attributed to two things. Number one, our preventive strategies. Our women are not going for screening as is supposed to be done. And number two, our HPV vaccination uptake is still very low.
Dr. Mithe, however, notes that the rates of cervical cancer have plummeted over the past decades due to advancement in treatment options, which vary depending on the stage of the cancer.
We have stage 1 that is generally managed using surgery. That is usually done by the gyne oncologists. and they remove the whole uterus and the cervix, including all other surrounding organs. Now, stage 2, right through stage 4A, the preferred approach is what we call combination chemoradiation. So here the patient gets chemotherapy in combination with radiation therapy, chemotherapy being a radiosensitizer to help the radiation therapy work better.
A journey that both Susan and Gladys know too well. The women had to brace themselves for a fierce fight that saw them take financial, emotional and physical blows.
Si venye ulikuja ndio utamaliza hiyo matibabu. Lazima utarudi kama umetofika kidogo. Kwa sababu hiyo ni mashini unatumia, na hiyo kemo pia saa zingine ukifika kwa hiyo mlango ya kemo unaanza kushtuka, manake hiyo dawa pia ukiona unakaa kama 5 hours 6 hours. Sasa unaona ni kitu ngumu. Hiyo mashini pia ya radio pia unalalia, inatumia ni kama inatumia damu, kwa sababu kila saa damu inapungua. Unafaa ukule vizuri, unafaa ufate mambo ya nutrition.
Utakopa kwa ukiambia mtu utakopa uende hospitali na uko na kansa, ataona hiyo ndio mwisho, hataona pesa yake ikilipo. Hapo ndio sasa mgonjwa anapungukiwa, na unakuta hata mwingine anakosa namna ya kwenda hospitali kwa sababu anashindwa, akiambiwa ni kansa ataanza wapi.
Despite those challenges, they agree that cervical cancer is not a death sentence. Susan was declared cancer-free, a confirmation that Gladys is eagerly waiting for after having successfully completed her treatment.
PET scan nimeenda last week on 24th. It was on Wednesday. Sasa nangoja result stock after 2 days, which is itakuwa Monday. Ndio sasa nikuje tena nimuone daktari hiyo Monday aniambie kama iko sawa, but ninaamini iko sawa.
A patient is declared cancer-free after completion of treatment upon doing the reassessment scans, MRI and PET-CT scan, and those scans showing that there's no residual or persistent disease seen. And then now we advise them on the 3 to 4 monthly follow-up to come and assess any complications of treatment and any recurrence or progression of the disease.
About 70% of treatment of cancer was catered by the National Health Insurance Fund for a patient who is registered under the medical cover. While this was a big boost, a majority of vulnerable patients still struggled to raise the remaining 30%. This, however, is expected to change with the introduction of the Social Health Insurance Fund, which seeks to replace NHIF. A special fund is going to be dedicated to the treatment of chronic illnesses. Kenyans will now be able to get a better financing option for treatment that will lessen their financial burden. This year's theme of the World Cervical Cancer Awareness Month, which is observed every January, is Learn, Prevent, Screen, which emphasizes the necessity of educating people with knowledge about minimizing cervical cancer risks and life-saving significance of regular screening. Safin Achieng Oma, Citizen TV.
Now, Samburu County, which has often been associated with cattle rustling and banditry attacks, also has another side to it. A side denoted by nature's raw beauty, part of which it's represented in the Samburu National Reserve. Now, the county government is trying to revive a tourism sector that was on the verge of collapse to enhance revenue collection and create employment for locals. Our reporter Boniface Baraza visited the National Reserve.
Samburu National Reserve is located more than 300 kilometers from Nairobi, Kenya's capital. The reserve's existence has been precarious due to mismanagement and community conflict. In 2023, the county government embarked on a push to revive the forgotten tourism sector in the county.
After rebuilding and coming together with the community and the county of Samburu, we have seen great improvement in Samburu National Reserve. Traffic of international clients has grown drastically, and also local tourism has improved.
The 165 square kilometers Samburu National Reserve is home to reticulated giraffes, Gravy zebra, Beza oryx, Somali ostrich, among other wild animals such as elephants. More especially, the elephant that gave birth to twins that has become the center for attraction of visiting tourists.
Oh, we've seen zebras, gazelles, lots of elephants, zebras, many giraffes. We saw the cheetahs.
We've been here 3 days, and it's been a beautiful experience. This is our second trip out, and we've seen, the elephants, the giraffes, the cheetah, and it's a really nice experience.
The people have been so welcoming. All of the hotels that we've stayed at have been first class.
Local tourism has also experienced significant improvement with Kenyans touring the park for holidays and weekends. Peter Mairori is a resident of Migori County.
I've been able to see a good number of elephants, good population of antelopes, giraffes obviously, and the funny thing is the grass. The grass is very tall. Look at it.
Samburu County Tourism County Executive Committee member Rafael Lenayara says the revival of the reserve has significantly improved the county's revenue and created job opportunities for locals through the camping sites within.
We found this reserve that was really run down. And so we put a lot of our energy, a lot of resources to revive the park. And the main reason is because the Samburu National Reserve is 80% of our local revenue earner. It's also one of our major streams also that employs many of our people.
Samburu Governor Lati Lelelit says his government is committed to reviving the park back to its lost glory.
We are proud that our people are employed. Over 85% of that staff is local. We are proud that businesses are back, all the lodges are operating, and they're bringing tourists from outside this country. We just want to assure all investors, all tourists, and everybody in Kenya and outside Kenya that the county government of Samburu has committed all resources to make sure that your stay in Samburu is safe, is fun.
It is the hidden treasure of Samburu County that puts it on a global map as a tourist attraction, apart from usually negative reasons of banditry attack that has always put this county on the map. Bonfas Barasa, Citizen TV, Samburu National Reserve, Samburu County.